Welcome back. It's halftime, Big Green Indian football. You know, we've talked about this being the 40th meeting between these two teams tonight, but we've got some guys on the phone. Were there. They played in the fourth meeting between the two teams, and it's kind of like a family reunion. In the studio with me, across from me from Fort Walton Beach High School, he was a wide receiver, safety, punter, kicker, quarterback, everything. Kim Duncan's with us. Kim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
And also on the line, locally here, quarterback for Choctaw, Vince Bruner. Vince has been on before. Vince, great having you, man.
Glad to be here with you, Tom.
The celebrity of all celebrities from Monroe, Louisiana, on the line with us. Fullback from Choctaw High School, Garry Hines. Gary, how you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing great.
Hey, honestly, we tried to do this last year, but Gary, Lieutenant Colonel Garry Hines was deployed over in Kabul and couldn't make it. But, hey, we wanted to say welcome back home, and thanks for what you do for protecting our freedom, Gary.
Thank you.
Let's go back to how we all grew up here, and Vince, Kim, you chime in first. Vince, why don't you talk about what you did Little League, because I know you guys played together down in Jet Stadium, right? You and Kim.
That's right. We were on a undefeated little JC Charger team there for 3 or 4 years, and it was kind of funny because most of those kids that were playing on the two teams in the 3 years that Kim and Garry played were all in that city league, and a lot of them were on our team, and it was a pretty close-knit community.
Yeah, it was a different time back then. We going through some clippings and all. It's almost like it was, the sporting news with pictures in the paper, right, Kim? And it was a big deal back then.
Yeah, they did a lot of big articles and had pictures. It was a big thing, big time, big event for everybody. It always made us feel good to see our picture or read something about us or one of our teammates in the paper. So it was a fun time.
Gary, you grew up here too. What are some of your memories?
My memories was that at the beginning, there were some obstacles that we had to overcome, in this thing, doing desegregation. But we finally got in the league, and I played for the St. Mary's Saints, and it's kind of like the Saints were before they won the Super Bowl. But it was all good. Good camaraderie. It was a big happening for the family to go over to Jet Stadium and see us compete and playing against Herbert Field and Eglin. And then eventually, some of your coaches followed you up to junior high or high school, like Coach Davenport, Coach Swazi. And I thought it was a great way to interact, from different sides of the town.
Gary, you grew up here. All three of you grew up here, but you and Kim ended up playing what was then junior high school ball together across town, right?
We sure did. And I tell you, I was talking to my kids the other day, and one of the things that stands out, we had to play those Meigs boys, and the thing that stood out, I remember that the announcer would say, back seat for the Spartans to receive the kickoff would be Duncan and Kim Duncan and Garry Hines. Get it, Duncan and Hines. And Kim was a great teammate. Mike Chirillo, Randy Hare, and those guys, played with them and enjoyed it. And so I kind of had friends on both sides of town.
Yeah, Vince, you're on the other side of town over at Meigs, right? You had quite a team yourself.
We did, but I tell you, that backfield with Duncan and Hines and Chirillo was an awesome middle school backfield, and I really, I hate to say something good about Garry while he's on the line, but we hadn't got Garry out of that threesome, we probably wouldn't have beat him in the 3 years that I was there.
Well, let's talk about the game, and that's kind of why we're all here. Garry, you ended up moving across town and teaming up with Vince over at Choctaw High School. The enormity of this game was much, much different than it is now, right, Vince? I mean, it seems like now it is a big rivalry game, but I'm looking at the clipping from that year, 1974, 13,000 fans at Etheridge Stadium.
Yeah, and I think that's a realistic. That's not one of those numbers that's exaggerated. I mean, that's an accurate number for that many people there, and it stayed that way for several years, and it's kind of slim some, but it's probably the way high school football is going all across the country and all across our region. It's not quite as heavily attended, but it was really a big event, and I always loved watching the games. Even after I left, it was just been an exciting time for us.
Vince Bruner, Garry Hines, and Kim Duncan in studio with me. I was talking with Bobby Scott the other day, and he played in the first game, and this was the fourth. But he said they went to pregame meal at 4:30 over at Black Angus. Kickoff back then was 8 o'clock. The buses pulled back up, and he couldn't believe the stadium was filled at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, Bobby was in that first game, and that was an incredible. It was an incredible first game, and it seemed to kind of like, if it was possible, to add emotion and excitement into the next 4 or 5 games because of the controversy and everything with the first one.
Yeah, the first game, the Indians won that one 12-7. Vikings won back-to-back games, and so we're looking for 3 in a row. And, Garry, you told me this last year. There was something on the line. It's hard to believe that people played so hard, not only for bragging rights, but a big piece of metal, that trophy. Talk about that trophy.
Yeah, I have that trophy. I have that picture hanging up in my living room. And Vince and the guys, we got together that summer and we worked. And the main thing on our minds was, at least we had talked about it, was, if we lose this game, we will always be remembered as the team that gave up the trophy. And I'm telling you, I know that's extrinsically motivation, but it was just something that, to hold that trophy for a year, it was like gold.
Well, the thing back then was if you lost 3 in a row, the other team got to keep the trophy forever, right?
Forever. And that's how we've gone. That would have been our legacy, and we weren't going for that.
Well, Kim, what were you guys across town thinking about in game planning? Do you remember going back to preparing for that week?
Well, we it was always a interesting way that you prepared for something like that, and we knew that they were going to be very motivated and they were going to do everything they could, and they did do a real good job. But we were wanting to take it all. We were wanting to be the team to take that trophy, and we prepared a game plan to do that, and we just didn't execute it the way we needed. We drew it up. A lot of times that's not as simple to do as you plan it to do, but they played an outstanding game, especially Vince. Vince played a tremendous game, and their whole team played together as a team.
Vince, you had Coach Ed Baker that year. I think that was his second. And last year at Choctaw, talk about what he was talking about going into that game.
Coach Baker, it's kind of funny how Garry was at Bruner, and Coach Baker, I believe, was over at Bruner for a while, but he had roots on that side of town, and he knew all those kids. And he was Ed was a middle linebacker at Auburn University, and tougher than a piece of shoe leather, and he tried to make everybody around him the same way. And so he was a very tough, taskmaster, and he knew those kids. He knew we knew them, and we grew up together, and so it was a lot of. And that trophy was just as, that's the way I remember it too. The trophy, the winner take all, or the loser is the loser forever was a pretty big deal.
Hey, we're going to talk about that game in depth, and we're going to do it in 2 minutes. And we'll be back more with Kim Duncan, Vince Bruner, and Garry Hines. You're listening to Big Green Football on Psalm 91.1, The Positive Choice.